Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Paul, and here is something that happened to me personally. Imagine working extra hours, cutting back on your own personal stuff, and dipping into your savings to help throw a special event for someone you care about deeply, only for them to treat you like nothing in front of everyone. But before I tell you what I did next, let me take you back to the beginning. Because the truth is, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. I met this lady, Adriana, at a business networking event. It was one of those formal setups. Adriana stood out immediately. She was dressed elegantly. Naturally, I assumed she came from serious money. That assumption didn't last long. Her beauty made it hard not to notice her. So I walked up, introduced myself, and we got talking. That day marked the start of what I thought was a solid connection. A friendship that later grew into something deeper. We didn't start dating immediately. A few months passed before we made things official. And that's when I began to see behind the polished exterior. Adriana opened up more. Turns out her family wasn't wealthy. Not anymore anyway. They were immigrants who once had a comfortable life. Her dad made smart investments and ran a few businesses until a financial crash wiped almost everything out. From what she told me, they went from being well off to being in serious debt practically overnight. Adriana worked as a marketing executive at an agency, and with her dad still trying to get back on his feet, a lot of financial pressure fell on her. She helped out where she could, paid bills, supported her parents, handled emergencies. I didn't look down on her for that. Life can throw curveballs at anybody, and I respected her for stepping up for her family. As for me, I worked as a logistics manager. I lived in a modest apartment, drove a decent car, and cooked at home more than I ate out. But I had ambition. I was putting money aside for a startup idea I believed in, and I was building towards something bigger. Now, here's where things started getting complicated. Adriana had a strong taste for the finer things. Designer clothes, high-end restaurants, weekend trips, and social events with the elite crowd. At first, I didn't mind. Everyone's got their preferences, right? I figured it wasn't a big deal. But little by little, the way she acted around me began to shift. She started making jokes. At least, she called them jokes. She'd correct me in front of her friends or roll her eyes when I brought up my startup plan, saying things like, "Let's talk about something real, okay?" Still, I let it slide. That's just Adriana being Adriana. I'd say to myself every time I felt the sting. I kept thinking she'd come around. That once we were further along, once she saw things get serious, she'd understand and appreciate it. I didn't realize then that I was slowly teaching her how to treat me. So, even with the red flags, I pushed forward. I was in love. Just a few months before our 2-year anniversary, I proposed. She said yes, and we started planning a future together. I was serious about her. That commitment didn't stop at words. I became more involved in every part of her life. She went through a tough financial stretch, and I stepped in. I didn't wait for her to ask. I just helped. She'd stress about bills or missed payments, and I'd find a way to make it easier for her. Her parents had their own struggles, too, and when they came up short, I quietly took care of it. Just doing what I thought a future husband should do. Then one time, there was the consulting gig she lost. She felt like a failure. I gave her a loan to hold her over while she figured things out. I didn't treat it like a transaction. I saw it as an investment in the person I was going to spend my life with. We were building a life together. At least that's what I thought. Her parents were supportive of our relationship. They liked me. I wasn't keeping score. I didn't care who was giving more or doing more. I just wanted to see her win, and I assumed, naively, that she wanted the same for me. As we planned for the wedding, her birthday was just around the corner. She was going through a rough financial patch, and things were tight for her. So I stepped in, not because she asked, but because it felt like the right thing to do. She was my fiancée, and in my mind, that meant something. I wanted her to feel special, celebrated, even adored. This birthday was my way of telling her, "I've got you." Adriana took charge of all the planning. She picked the venue, a rooftop lounge in the city with a skyline view that screamed luxury. She curated the guest list, colleague from work, a few friends she'd met through her influencer circles, even some family members. She handpicked the caterer, going for one of those boutique-style services with fancy appetizers and mini dessert plates. I didn't argue. I just asked for the costs and took care of the deposits. By the time everything added up, I had covered more than half the expenses. It stretched me thin. I had to dip into some savings I was putting aside for my startup idea. But I did it gladly. I was proud to do it for the woman I believed I was going to spend my life with. On the day of the party, I wanted everything to feel like magic for her. I rented a sleek black car. I wanted her to arrive in style. She stepped out of the house in a shimmering dress that turned heads, and I remember thinking to myself, this is her night. I wore my best suit to match the tone of the event and stand proudly by her side. When we got to the venue, I didn't try to insert myself into her conversations. I hung back. I held her purse when she needed her hands free. I smiled at her guests, offered polite nods, and stayed close enough in case she needed something, but far enough to give her space. It was her day, after all. I wanted her to shine. She was standing with a group of people from her job, and I was standing a few feet away when I noticed one of the women glance over at me and ask Adriana, "Who's that gentleman over there? He seems to be following you around." Adriana laughed. Then she said, loud enough for everyone in that circle to hear, "Oh, him? That's just my driver." The people around her laughed. I stood there, frozen. My brain didn't even process it fully at first. I thought I misheard her. But then I saw her face. That's when I realized. She just humiliated me publicly. I just waited for a moment when I could pull her aside. When I finally got her attention and asked her, "Why would you say that?" she looked at me like I was the problem. Then she said, "You should be grateful I even let you in. Look at the people here. You don't exactly belong." That sentence crushed something in me. I just nodded, slowly. And without saying anything else, I grabbed my jacket, turned around, and walked out. So, after that party, I was supposed to complete a few payments for the party afterward. There were some pending balances for the decorator and the caterer that I had agreed to handle before all that nonsense happened. But after what she pulled, there was no way I was sending another dime. Instead of reaching out to her, I took the next few days to sit with my thoughts and reflect on everything. I kept going back over everything, how many red flags I ignored, how often I brushed off the little jabs, the way she looked down on me. And I asked myself a question I should have asked a long time ago. Why did I let it get that far? Why did I convince myself that love meant swallowing disrespect? 2 days after the party, Adriana called. My phone lit up with her name, and for a second, I just stared at it. But I didn't pick up. Whatever she had to say couldn't matter more than what she had already shown me. She left a voicemail, said she needed me to send the rest of the money to cover the outstanding bills for her birthday. I didn't respond. I blocked her number. The next day, she tried again. A new number. I answered, thinking it might be someone else. The moment I heard her voice, I hung up and blocked that number too. I had finally drawn the line. On the 4th day, she showed up at my house. I saw her through the peephole, standing there, waiting for me to open the door. But I didn't. There was nothing left to say. She had already said everything when she introduced me as her driver and told me I should be grateful just to be at her party. Eventually, after a few knocks and a few minutes, she left. I watched her walk away without a word. 2 weeks had passed since Adriana's birthday party. I hadn't spoken to her since. Blocked her calls. Ignored her texts. I heard a knock on my front door one quiet Saturday afternoon. At first, I thought it might be a delivery or a neighbor, but when I opened the door, it was Adriana's parents. Her parents looked uncomfortable, clearly unsure how to start the conversation. The first thing I noticed was the expression on their faces. "Paul," her mother said softly, "we're so sorry to bother you like this." They didn't waste time with small talk. They came right out and said they had heard about what happened at the party. Adriana had told them I stormed out over nothing, but they didn't buy it. One of her friends reached out to them privately and told them what really happened. How Adriana had called me her driver. They were embarrassed. You could see it all over them. Her dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "We didn't raise her to treat people like that." He told me they'd noticed her changing recently, becoming more distant, more arrogant. "She's lost herself," her mom added. "She's been trying so hard to look like she belongs in that world that she forgot how to treat people who truly care about her." They asked me to reconsider my decision. Her father said, "We're not saying you should take her back, but maybe you could at least talk to her. Maybe hearing from you could bring her back to reality." I listened and appreciated their honesty. I knew it wasn't easy for them to come all the way to my place, knowing what their daughter had done. I respected them for that. But my answer was simple and clear. "I'm sorry," I said, "but Adriana is in my past. I don't hate her, but I've made peace with what happened, and I have no intention of ever going back." They nodded slowly. I could tell they weren't surprised. They thanked me for my time, apologized once again, and left. I stood at the door for a while after they left. By the time Adriana's birthday party faded into memory, I got another call, not from Adriana this time, but from her parents. When I answered, I could already tell from the tone of her father's voice that something was wrong. He said Adriana had gotten herself into a serious financial mess. Her father asked if I could help. "Just help her settle this," he said. "We'll handle the rest later." I listened and let him finish. And then I said, slowly but clearly, "She's no longer my responsibility." There was a pause. I think he was surprised by how calm I sounded. But I meant every word. After that statement, her parents hung up. As I look back now, I regret how long it took me to realize that love without respect is just self-harm. I'll never accept being treated like I'm less than what I am. Now, I want to end the story with a few lessons I've come to understand more clearly through everything I've experienced. If my story helps even one person recognize what I ignored, then it was worth telling. First, never ignore small signs. Disrespect doesn't always arrive wearing a flashing red light. So, if someone keeps taking jabs at you, especially in front of others, don't brush it off. Pay attention. They might be telling you exactly how they feel about you, just not in words you expect. Second, don't overextend yourself just to prove you're worthy of love or acceptance. Real respect doesn't need to be bought or begged for. It's either there or it's not. The more I gave, the more she took. And when it was time for her to defend me in front of her fancy crowd, she stripped me of my dignity instead. Third, silence can be louder than rage. I've come to realize sometimes walking away is the loudest statement you can make. It tells the other person, "You don't get to treat me like that." It's not about revenge. It's about choosing your peace. Fourth, and maybe most important, anyone who needs to belittle you to impress others is not your partner. That's not love. That's insecurity wearing a pretty face. So if you're watching this and you're in a relationship where you feel like you're constantly trying to earn basic respect, take a step back. Ask yourself, are they proud of you? Or are they just proud of what you give them? Thanks for listening to my story. I appreciate every one of you who made it this far. Now I'll leave you with one question. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading.